Some books change your life. They're not just stories. They have a really deep impact in you. They stay with you, shape you, sometimes even heal you. A little while ago, I shared a video called 12 Books That Changed My Life. And so many of you connected with it. And since then, many of you have been asking for part 2. So here it is, 10 more books that touched me deeply. Some made me cry, some made me laugh, some made me see the world differently, and a few of them even helped me to become a bit more successful at work, which I honestly didn't expect happening. And the last book on this list, I've actually saved it to the end because it's special, really special. So let's dive straight in. So let's start with this book, The Photographer of the Lost by Caroline Scott. It has a soft tone but quite powerful. And the period portrayed is right after the World War I. It's about the people who were searching for their loved ones, their family, their friends who didn't come home. Can you imagine the waiting for someone you love, day after day, hoping for a letter or a knock at your front door? And nothing, just nothing, only silence. Now I have to tell you, I've always been a fan of World War related films and books, especially about World War II. I watched so many movies and read so many stories. The heartbreak, the courage, the way ordinary people like us get caught up in extraordinary events. So when I heard about this book, even though it is set about World War I knew I had to read it. I actually got this book from the library, and honestly, I love libraries. There is something magical in walking in and being surrounded by thousands and thousands of books in the shelves, and all for free. It feels like treasure hunting, isn't it? You go in for one book and then you come back with different sets of books in your hand. It's like, for me, it is like there is a saying in Tamil, Karumbu thinna kooli venuma. That's exactly what I feel whenever I go into a library. One day I was wandering up and down the aisle, couldn't decide what I wanted to read. Then I found this book I had been searching for a long time. See, the sepia-toned cover. See, it looks like an old photograph, isn't it? It was almost staring back at me. Books can speak to you. While reading this book, I was actually reminded of my grandparents' black and white photographs. The portraits, no smiles. The old photos, they won't smile on it, just stiff faces. But their eyes say everything. That's exactly what this book really feels like. It doesn't rush, it doesn't shout, it moves really slowly. It was almost like turning the pages of an old album, your family album, and each image holding a story you can't quite see, but you can feel in your heart. There is sadness, yes, but also a kind of a quiet dignity. It's about memory, love, and the small ways people trying to put their lives back together after a big war. It's not a sort of story you complete in one go. You read it slowly, gently, and then you pause it for a bit. You experience it in your head, and somehow the characters start living in your thoughts. Even after you finish reading, it keeps processing in the background of your mind. Whenever you're doing your everyday chores, it's still running in the background. And the next book I want to talk about is Ghachar. Even the title makes me smile. It is such a clever phrase, In Kannada language, it means entangled beyond repair. That is Ghachar. The feeling when everything in life is tangled together and no matter how hard you pull at it, it only tangles a bit more. That feeling is Ghachar. I love saying the name. The funny thing is, I googled up for the meaning for this word and I found that the author Vivek Shanbhag made up this word. This book was originally written in Kannada, but I read the English translation. And even in the translation, the words still felt razor sharp. It cuts through you. It's actually a slim little book. You can finish it in a train journey. It digs into family life with brutal honesty. Money, power, family rules, the unspoken rules. And the way silence is louder than any words. I remember a line from the story. It says, in our family, it is not okay to step out of the line. The consequences will be Ghachar. That line gave me goosebumps because isn't that the truth? We all know. In many families, the rules are not written anywhere, but we all know it. And if you dare to break them, well, you'll feel it in one way or the other. It even reminded a funny thing that happened in my own family, I think it was years ago. We had a big lunch with an extended family, and I casually said that how I didn't like the traditional dishes, some of them. Oh my God, the silence, the way everyone looked at me, it was as if I robbed a bank. That was such a Ghachar moment. No one said a word, but I knew I had crossed the line. That's what I love about this book. It's not flashy, it doesn't try too hard, but it holds up a mirror. You see yourself, your family, your childhood, all tucked into those small pages. And the next one, The Ball at Versailles. The book tells it all, the glamour of it. It's classic Danielle style. The chandeliers, the ball gowns, the heartbreak, the glamour of it all. Pure sparkle. I was halfway reading through the book. I was curled up in the sofa, completely immersed into that world of ballrooms, all that glitter world. And my husband walked through. He saw the cover of the book and he said, "So, when are we going to this ball then?" I didn't even look up at him. I just said, "Sorry, Parthi. No tux, no party. You don't even own a proper tux." There is something about these European settings that we Indians can't resist, isn't there? Switzerland, Italy, we have seen those places like 1,000 times in our movies. The hero and heroine running through the meadows, singing, dancing, twirling in rain on cobblestone streets. That romance has been stamped into our imaginations, even from our childhood. While reading this book, I could almost picture myself in one of those romantic, filmy moments, walking down the grand staircase in the ballroom, violins playing somewhere in the background. It was playful, a bit dreamy, and almost like a holiday in my head. Trust me, you will actually jump into the book and live in it. I have to tell you, it's not a book that will change your life, but sometimes we don't want that. Sometimes we want to switch off all the pressures of life and escape into a dream world. And this book gave me exactly that, a glittering escape. It was like, sneaking into a party you weren't invited to. The excitement. The Illicit Happiness of Other People by Manu. The title alone caught my eye. Because, let's be honest, haven't we all wondered about that? How some people seem so effortlessly happy while we are trying to figure things out in our lives. This story is about a father trying to make sense of his son's death. That sounds unbearably sad, and it's a heavy subject. But what surprised me was how sharp the writing was. It really took me by surprise. It is sarcastic, witty, and sometimes even laugh out loud funny. Suddenly, you'll turn into a page and then you'll find yourself sitting in silence, staring at a sentence that feels so deep. I read this book in a weekend when I was alone at home. My husband and the girls had been to a camp, which I couldn't go because I had cold. There were moments I had to literally put the book down and just breathe because it was so heavy. It sort of reminded me of the little bit, Murakami's Norwegian Wood. That strange blend of humor and sadness, lightness and grief. It's not the kind of book you breeze through. It's the kind you wrestle with, It asks questions. It sort of unsettles you. It makes you look at your own family and think, "Oh, what I don't know." Not everyone will love this book, and that's okay. If you're a sort of reader who likes the books that makes you smile a minute and then makes you sit in silence the next minute, then this book is for you. And the next book is quite interesting. See? The Rose Queen by Flynn. Some books you hunt down in libraries or in bookshops. This came to me as a gift. A friend from my book club gave it to me one day and said, "Narmada, you need something cozy. Stop reading books that make you cry all the time." I was actually going through a phase of reading serious books for a while. And she was right. This book is a sort of story you curl up in the sofa on a rainy afternoon. It's a proper old-fashioned family saga where women hold everything together even during hard times. Children growing up with little but making the best of it. Neighbors who know everyone else's business. Basically, my childhood. What struck me the most was how much this book reminded me of my grandmother's stories. I grew up hearing those about how life wasn't easy, about shortages, sacrifices, but also about the laughter in the kitchen while cooking, borrowing sugar from your neighbors, basically about finding joy in small things of life. When I read The Rose Queen, I felt like I was being pulled back into the childhood days, the rosy days, the warm feeling. It's not dramatic. This book is not trying to be clever, but comforting. The kind of book that makes you settle back in chair and think, yes, life is hard, but people always get through it. Positivity, basically. It's lovely. If you haven't read it, please give it a try. The next book, The Last Leonardo by Ben Lewis. This isn't fiction, it's a real story. It's a story of a painting called Salvator Mundi that appeared suddenly, and everyone started asking questions. People are asking, is it really Leonardo da Vinci or just a clever fake? And then all the drama kicked off, experts arguing with each other, the art experts, and the museums not agreeing, billionaires throwing their silly money at it. Proper circus it was. And in the end, I think it was sold on 2017 or it could be 18. I'm sure it was before COVID started. It was all over the newspapers. It was sold for more than $400 million. Can you believe that? For a piece of art? This book actually made me laugh because this book took me straight back to Paris. This happened way before this book, way before that painting appeared and all that. That was the first time, I think, first time me and my husband went to Paris. We nearly missed our flight. We were at the Museum Louvre and I was not ready to move from Mona Lisa painting. It's not photograph, sorry. It's a painting. I was just staring. I was standing and trying to find out, is there any secret code on it? Because I've read so many books about secret Da Vinci's secret codes. He puts them inside his paintings and all that. I've read it from my childhood days. So I was so excited. It was intriguing. Mona Lisa. It was a small painting. I refused to move from there. My husband was fuming. He literally dragged me saying that, do you want to miss the flight? And I was saying just one more look from a different angle. We actually had less than half an hour to catch the train which goes to the airport. But I refused to move from there. That's what this book shows. What art does to people. The obsession. It makes you act ridiculous. And it's not just about the beauty. It's about power, greed, ego, all of that wrapped into one canvas. That is this book is about. The story is really gripping. And now I know you'll be straight going to Google, won't you? After watching this video, you will search for that painting and wondering, is it really Da Vinci? The painting's name is Salvator Mundi. Google it. And I have to talk about this book, My Silently Mother by Geetanjali Shree. This book really touched me. It's a story about mothers and daughters, but not in the way we usually think. When we are young, up to the age of 18 or 20, our mothers seem to be the superwomen for us. Everything they do revolves around us. But later on, somewhere along the way, you realize she's not just your mom. She was not born as a mother. She's also a woman with her own past, with her own stories, with her own struggles, her own choices in life, her own passions and dreams. That's what this book does. It slowly pulls back the layers of the society. Page by page, you start to see the woman behind the word mother. I think the original book was in Hindi. I read the English translation. This book was for me, it was like overhearing family conversations, nothing dramatic. You feel the weight of everything that's left unspoken in the story. You read between the lines, but that level of honesty can make you a bit uncomfortable in some places, but in a good way. It's not a kind of story you fly through. You read a little, few pages, and then you stop. Think about it in the background while you're working in the office, cooking, cleaning at home. When I finished this book, when I put it down, it sort of left me a heaviness in my heart, but also kind of respect for everything our mothers carry. We rarely appreciate, we rarely see that. This book, One Good Thing by Alexandra Potter, see, it came to me at the right time. I was actually going through a sad patch in a friendship. Someone I had thought was a good friend, but turned out they are not what I thought they would be. It actually really knocked me. That's exactly when I picked this up from a charity shop. I can call it coincidence or divine. I don't know what it is. This book actually reminded me, even when things get tough in life, there is always light at the end of the tunnel. It's an old saying, but it doesn't harm you if you read it again and again. We need it in our lives. I want to tell you this one line from the book. Sometimes one good thing is enough to keep you going. Sometimes one good thing is enough to keep you going. Isn't it fantastic? It's true, isn't it? Some days it's a good, nice cup of tea. And some days it's just a phone call from someone you really care about. And sometimes it's a book like this, God sent. There is something in this book. I want to read it to you. Give me a second. Let me spot it. Give me a couple of minutes. Yeah, here it is. It's a brilliant line. I read it to my kids also. You know, it really pulled me from the bad times, pulled me back. Now, I want to read it to you. It's about a dog, you see. I can tell Harry anything, and that's my dog barking. And he's never going to judge or criticize me. I don't have to worry that he's going to think me silly or pathetic. Whatever I say, I know he'll still love me because a dog's love is unconditional. Oh, it's brilliant, isn't it? It's very, very true. I have a dog, Kiwi, wonderful little dog. Yeah, there's more. Moreover, I've never been able to open up to anyone in the way I do to Harry. That's true with my Kiwi as well. It's like a form of therapy, of course. On our daily walks, at home on the sofa, or in the middle of the night when I used to be unable to sleep, I'll find myself having conversations with him. I haven't done that yet, but the sofa bit is true, and the walking bit is true, and the cuddling bit, everything else is true. It's a brilliant book. If you haven't read it, please read it. Reading this book made me slow down a little and think, to notice the smaller things, a bit of sunshine, a quiet walk. It's not a dramatic story, but it gave me comfort right when I needed it. That's what this book, One Good Thing, felt for me. Simple, gentle, and exactly what I needed at that point in my life. And this book, it had my brain doing gymnastics. Give me a second. It is by A.G. Riddle, Quantum Radio. It's all about parallel universes, secret experiments, conspiracy theories, and a lot of science. And if I'm honest, some of them went way over my head. But that's the beauty of it. You don't need to understand every scientific detail to be drawn into the story. There were moments I was thinking, God, what on earth is going on? But before I knew it, I was way pages ahead, desperate to see what happens next. And that's what happens when you read this book. I couldn't track down this book in bookshops because that was a bit disappointing, because I like buying books from the real bookstores, like feeling the paper, touching, very old-fashioned. So in the end, I ordered it online. And the moment it came home, I still remember it, I didn't even clear the packaging material away. I sat down straight away. That thrill of the new book, that feeling, that thrilling feeling, no gadget can replace that. Sorry, Kindle users. This book actually reminded me a little about when I first read about The Martian, The Martian. You don't need to be a scientist to read it. The story sweeps you along. What really grabbed me in Quantum Radio was the mix of science and the human drama. There is Dr. Klein, the physicist, who makes this strange discovery, a signal, a kind of radio broadcast but not from our universe. And the way that discovery spirals out into danger, that's what kept me hooked. The scenes with him being pulled into the secret world where you don't know whom to trust, those were my favorite. It felt so real, like you could almost see it playing it out as a film. And even though some of the quantum mechanics went way over my head, the tension, the face, the what if this is real feeling, that's what carried me through while reading it. So yes, it's mind-bending at times, but that's the thrill of it. Big science, big stakes, but the very human question, what if this happens? What would we do if we really discovered another universe? If you are same as me, intrigued by the concept of parallel universe, multiverse concepts, you must read it. It's brilliant. And now, the final book. I kept this one for the very end, not because it's the least important, but honestly, according to me, it's the best. The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. One of my all-time favorite authors. I've already read this book. This is my second time reading it. This book was her debut novel and she even won Booker Prize that same year. Can you imagine that? Your debut book and suddenly the whole world is talking about it. I remember the first time when I read this book, I told myself, this isn't just a book. It is an experience. A couple of months ago, I read it again. The story is set in Kerala. Twins and their mother Ammu and all the unspoken rules and taboos that surround them. Love, loss, caste system, politics, it's all in there. But it's written in such a lyrical way that you actually feel every word. It's not a leisure read, I must warn you. It jumps back and forth in time. Sometimes you may even feel a little bit disoriented, but then suddenly a line will strike you so deeply that you will sit down and think. You have to let that sink in. That is the power of Arundhati Roy. She can take the tiniest, most ordinary detail in your life and give so much weight to it. I adore her writing. There is one line from this book that has always stayed with me. It's funny how sometimes the smallest things take the most room in your heart. Very true, isn't it? The small things take most room in your heart. Even now, just saying it out loud brings back everything, the story, the emotions, the tragedy, but also the beauty. This book isn't just about small things. It's about how the small things, the looks, the silence, the moments we barely notice in our lives can change everything. And that's why I saved it for the last. Because it lingers in your brain for long after you finish reading the book. Once you read this book, you won't be the same person. You will change forever. So there you have it. 10 more books that left their mark on me. A couple of them pulled me out of tough days. A few of them taught me lessons that I didn't even know I needed. And some just reminded me why I love reading in the first place. If you watched this video all the way through, thank you. It means a lot. Maybe you've read some of these books already. Maybe 1 or 2 books are going to your to-be-read pile. Either way, I love to hear from you. Share with me in the comments the books that you loved reading. What was the last book you read? And if you have missed it, there is also part 1 of this book recommendations video. 12 books that changed my life. I'll link it below. You can click it and watch anytime. And who knows? There'll soon be a part 3 down the line because let's be honest, the stack of books at my home never goes down. I love reading. So, until we meet again next week, happy reading.